We are live. Hey, y'all. I'm gonna wait a minute to get some people to come in live. Hoping everybody had a good evening. We had some technical difficulties. That's what took us so long to get on social media. But thank you for being patient with us. If you can hear me, you can say hey. Just shout out for a minute. Everybody had a good evening. All righty. So Dwan, you want to say hey? I don't know if they can see your face. Everybody had a good evening. I think you would have to say hey, Dwan. You might want to keep your phone device unmuted just so you can just keep chiming in. So we had some technical difficulties and we are 25 minutes late, and I apologize for the slowness. And of course, everything was running smoothly.
Hello, everyone.
All right.
Happy Friday.
And my internet wants to slow down on me. Great. Let me see if I can get this adjusted. So hopefully we can get it together. So hey y'all, so I'm here. This is Yvonne, and Dwan and I are going to do our very first platform. Dr. Claudette Copeland inspired me to want to bring something that she drew from, which was the movie with the Clark sisters, but she did a segment and it was about tears, truth in our tears. And it talked about how our tears tell our truth. She didn't title it that way, but she said something within that segment about how women cry and they tell different tears. And with those tears, they tell our truths. So it allows us to express our pain in different forms. But before we dig in deep and you guys can hear a little bit about Dwan and our tears, I want to give you some scientific facts, some medical facts. According to the National Behavioral Health Innovation Center, stress may be defined as environmental demands that tax or exceed the adaptive capacity of an organism, resulting in biological and psychological changes that may be detrimental and place the organism at risk or for disease. This organism that National Behavioral Health Innovation Center is alluding to is the human being. Psychology Today said emotional tears have special health benefits. They detoxify our body, help self-soothe, they dull our pain, and it improves the mood. According to scholars.org, they said that Black women hold in so many tears, but when we let go of our tears, people think the norm of the society, because we're supposed to be so strong. If you guys remember the book review of Too Heavy a Yoke, they think that we are hysterical or pathologically weak. Black women are always given a reward for holding it in. But when we hold it in, we quickly gain a badge of honor. But the results of that badge of honor is stress, heart disease, and strokes. In the Black community, Black women are expected to be the pillar of strength and show no evidence of mental or emotional weakness. This is why I chose, and I asked, what do you guys want to lean into? How tears tell our truths. Tears tell your truth. And it allows us to get rid of some of that detoxifying toxic things that hold us in. So as Dwan and I sit here, we're going to unpack. I'm going to unmute her device, and we're going to unpack some questions that oftentimes women don't want to share, questions that women don't want to ask, and answers women don't want to give. So we have taken our time and sat together in a dialogue to share some things with each other. And we also agreed, why not share with women, because we're Black and it's Juneteenth, to share some things we deal with and why we had to hold our tears in, or how our tears tell our truths. So sit back for about 30, 40 more minutes, and Dwan and I are going to talk about how we shed our tears or hold them in. So our first question I'm going to give to Dwan, and she's going to come in and answer in the best way that she knows how, because we're coming from a unscripted dialogue, but we did go through the questions. So the first question for Dwan would be, Dwan,
Yes.
we all cry, but can you share with me who was the first person who told you not to cry? And Dwan, why did they tell you not to cry?
The first person that I can remember who told me not to cry would be my mother. Growing up in the South, in Miami, Florida, we always had our family members. We always had my grandmother. We always had my great grandmother. We always had my great grandfather, and my stepdad was always there. My tears came from my mother telling me not to cry, from longing for my biological father. He would have these showing up acts and these disappearing acts that were quite frequently. And whenever he left or did not show up for the said event, then the tears would come. As he began to depart, when he did show up or he would not come at the time that he promised to come, I was told, don't cry. Don't do it. Don't cry. It's okay. I'm here. And that set the stage for holding back tears when you long for seeing the person you call daddy, the person you call your father. So the first person who told me not to cry that I can remember would be my mother.
So the next question. So your mom, she kind of shaped you into that place of not shedding tears. So at childhood, we can say that that has an adverse effect on kids when you're told not to cry.
Absolutely.
Can you recall a time you wanted to cry and tears never came?
Same scenario, different age. Longing for him to have a conversation with him in my adult life. Him stating that he would be in a specific place at a specific time on a specific date, never showing up, never calling to say I can't make it or something has happened. And sitting there having a desire to shed those tears, but remembering in the back of my head, don't cry, it's okay. So having the desire to weep for a person who have given me promises in the form of my dad and not being able to obtain the things that he promised. You sit there and you desire to cry. You want to have the tears to flow, but they never come. Because number one, what's embedded in you from a child is it's okay. Don't cry. I'm here. And number two, as you get older, things change in your mindset on whether he's going to show up or not.
So guys, I'm going to give Dwan her list of questions, and then she'll be able to ask me some, which will give you a feel on where we're going with this. And at the end, we're going to have a full conversation, and we may cry, and that's okay. Dwan, the next question would be, recalling those times about those tears and reliving those things that happened at childhood, mentoring in mourning is missing, and we've become packaged and artificial when it comes to weeping. What makes us that way? When we're mentored not to mourn, when your mom told you, don't cry, Dwan, and we become packaged. We're told to do so many things and look a certain way. What makes us that way, and who are we trying to impress?
Ooh, that's a heavy question. You said mentoring in mourning is missing, and we become packaged and artificial when it comes to weeping. What makes us that way, and who are we trying to impress? The first part to that question is what makes us that way is what you were raised with, how you were raised from generation to generation. We grow up watching our parents be so strong, watching our grandparents be so strong, and this pillar of strength, like our matriarchs of the family. So very seldomly do you see those who raised us go into a position of weeping or into a posture of crying and telling their story. They always have told you advice or giving you acknowledge that, yeah, this may be bad, but. So to answer that first part of the question, what makes us that way is generational knowledge, generational teachings, things that have come from our mothers, our grandmothers, our matriarchs of our family. And who are we trying to impress? When there's no one around, I believe we're trying to impress ourselves, to say that we are this pillar of strength when actually we're really broken and we're really weeping and we need a space to feel what we feel and to be honest about what we feel. And I do believe, this is just in my opinion, that when there are people around, those who we're trying to impress usually have gone through the same things we've gone through, but we want to appear that we're strong in that area and that we have conquered the areas of crying that bothers us. A lot of times we try to impress our children because we want our children not to see the vulnerable side of us. Sometimes we don't want them to see us cry the tears that can actually help mold them into being the human beings they should be. However, I think sometimes it's a bad place to withhold your tears in front of your kids. So I think that most of the time, if we have those of us who have children, we try to leave upon the impression that mama is strong. We got this. And it becomes an epic fail as the children grow up. And then we watch our children go through the same things that we went through with not, letting it out. So they internalize the cry that they should have let loose long time ago. So I think those are the people that we try to impress. And again, when there's no one there, is there anyone to impress there? Maybe just ourselves. We have a false sense of security of who we really are because we never was honest from the first time we started shedding tears. And the first person said, don't cry, told us not to cry.
So I'm going to mix this up a little bit because I'm sure you're kind of aware of what's going on. So I'm going to ask you one of those questions that I asked you when we talked.
Okay.
With your tears, are there any that stem from your childhood currently? For instance, if you're going through something and you feel a certain type of pain, do you ever recall crying from past experiences coupled with what's going on in your current situation?
Yes. I grew up without my dad. I grew up without my biological father. I would never call his name or anything, but my father grew up in a lifestyle of mafiaism. We grew up not knowing who he really was. We grew up only having a face and an assumed name. So some of my siblings had the same name I had pre-marriage, and some of my siblings had an assumed name that he went by. And so we have, same father, different last names, but from the same man. Thinking about that and thinking about now, when I got married, I wanted him to be present in my life, even pre-marriage, just to have a dad from, get information from a male's perspective. So me thinking back in my head, remembering crying and longing for him, sometimes now at 46, I cry and long for the him that should have been there when I was younger. if that makes sense.
It does. It makes a lot of sense.
I cry and long for the 12-year-old girl who wants her daddy to pick her up and take her to the store, to have the conversations about life. I long for the 16-year-old dad going into teenagehood, what to look for in a man, what not to look for. And then I long for the adult to have that experiences on just sharing my life with him, sharing my children with him, being able to know what he like and what we don't like, just different things that about from your mom. I want that relationship with my dad. And sometimes now, yes, I at 46 cry those tears that I didn't have a chance to cry at 12 and 5 because I was told, don't cry, it will be okay. So and now here at 46, I'm sorry. Now here at 46, sometimes it's really not okay.
Would it be safe enough to say that you said it's not okay, but to kind of dig a little bit deeper to release a few of those tears from your childhood?
Are you asking?
Is it safe enough to say that it may be okay? That absolutely. If you have a trigger, which is what we use in therapy or counseling, but in this case, from a childhood experience, would it be okay to say, crying from that space of a child in your current place, does it help you release some of those things that you didn't get to grapple with as a kid in your adulthood?
Yes, occasionally it does.
Okay.
Sometimes it does. Sometimes it takes a little bit more than crying. Sometimes the crying turns into rage and anger. And how I couple that with the thought process of going back into that place or visiting the place I am now with those tears is I have to channel that into something totally different so that those feelings of anger and bouts of, regret won't come up and consume me. Because it's easy to allow what you didn't have to consume you now, if you think about it too much. So yes, I must say it is okay to say that it's okay to not be okay with the feelings of regret and all of that. But, I'm in a better place now mentally for that reason, because I had to channel and maneuver through some of the anger and some of the bouts of regret and some of the disappearing acts. So, and I can understand it now because I understand why he's in the position he's in with our siblings. So for me, it was a healing process. I want to say it was maybe 3 years ago when I was able to finally release that kind of hurt. It's been about 3 years now that I actually released that deep of pain of him not being there, only because I understood now why he wasn't there.
Okay, so this question will kind of weave into your home. It'll make it a little bit more personable and not so much about who you are as a person and how your tears flow. How do you help your children battle through their own tears, knowing that you have had to grapple with dealing with your own childhood adverse situations when your mom told you not to cry, which was the first question? How do you help your children lean into that pain and understand that it's okay to cry? It's all right for you to be this way, because I'll give you an opportunity to ask me questions because I don't want to comment on top of your answer. But how do you help them lean into that pain?
I don't tell them not to cry. I never say, oh, don't cry. I never tell them to cry, scream, yell, cuss, do whatever you need. You have a safe place in front of me where you can do all of that. That's the first thing that I tell them. I give them a space to unload what they're feeling. The second thing I do, tell them to write it down. Write what you're feeling, write it down, because sometimes writing helps. And you can articulate better once you've gotten it on paper and you see it. You're like, oh my God, I can't really believe I put that on paper. And this is the way I really feel. Write it down, start journaling. And then once it's something that I know that I'm not unequipped to handle, I tell them to go see a therapist.
Okay. The last question, and I'm you're going to find out when you read the questions for me. You can say, oh my goodness. But I think we kind of got what we needed. And yeah. The last question, are your tears different now than when you were 12 years old? And before you answer that question, Dr. Copeland stated that she went to a funeral, to one of her friends' mom's funeral when she was 12. Now that she's older or more mature or seasoned, those same tears aren't the same in her current space and with the life experiences she's dealt with. Are your tears different now than when they were when you were 12 years old? When it comes to death or grieving or mourning or dealing with just life circumstances, do you find yourself in a different space with those tears that fell at 12 years old and with your present age and life's experiences?
In some cases, yes. And in some cases, no. Especially when it comes to grief, dealing with grief. Of course, you will get an answer yes from the majority of people, because you don't deal with death and grief and tragedy the same way you do at 12. Your mind is not even finishing developing at the age of 12 versus the age I am now. So the yes part of that is because of development and who we've become and the things that you learn from 12 to 46. And you say, are the tears different now than when I was 12? My no answer is because sometimes I still cry for my daddy. Sometimes I want him now, seem like more now than ever. The last time I laid eyes on him, I was 13 years old. I'm 46 now, so you do the math. I've talked to him, had conversations with him, still get broken promises that I'm coming to see you. So for me, when it comes to the pain of daddy, and I want to weep for him, you say, are my tears different now than when I was 12? No. As far as dealing with grief and things that my mind allowed me to mature on, yes. But for that particular issue, no.
That's interesting. We'll continue to work through that last question and talk about it a little bit more, hopefully, if we have some time at the end. So, ladies, now is the interrogation room for me. So, Dwan is going to ask me a series of questions, and hopefully, I can be as honest and not too filtered because I was trained differently. So, Dwan, have at it, and I'm going to sit here and lean back and just relax and listen and do my best to answer what I can, and try not to plead the fifth. I cannot answer.
Okay.
I know, right?
I tell you, it's something about the shedding of tears, especially when you have trained yourself, don't cry. It's something about when you release all those emotions into what you're doing and you're able to free yourself and to release your silent weep. But a question that I have for you was, who was the first person who told you not to cry, and what was the circumstances behind it?
So I have two moms, and both of them told me not to cry. Was I given an opportunity to cry? Probably not. So dealing with child adverse experiences, they can be extreme, they can be mild, or they can be moderate. I mean, just a little bit moderate, more so not in the middle. In my case, they were a tad bit extreme. So to cry, even with a spanking, was not an option. So bricks were built as early as I can remember. Both my godmother and my mom would not allow me to fully express any of my emotions if I had some. As a result, it put me in a harder shell. It made my shoulders rigid, my neck tense, and my muscles tighten. If that would help the audience that's listening in or who would ever chime in. So to say, did I cry? Yes, but only in private. As a kid. So both both of my mothers did not give me space to show any tears.
What were the circumstances around the tears that you didn't allow anyone to see?
I'm 46 now, and if I can think that far back, a song would make me cry in order to release that pain. But 9 times out of 10, Dwan, I probably didn't cry much as a kid. And if I did, it's when I got a spanking or chastised, or normally the overflowing of tears would be from where I couldn't do what I wanted to do. So if I was told no, I would cry. But the crying was not because of the no, it was probably from pent up anger. Once they realized that behavior issues kicked in, they pretty much let me do what I wanted to do because the tears turned into violence. You know, I did what I needed to do to make life work for me at a very early age, and tears didn't flow anymore. I just kind of pushed my way through the floor or the door, and I did what I wanted to do. Mm-hmm. And with the help of 2 women in my life, I can truly say it was in my, probably when I had my first child, is when I may have cried a little bit, but not as much as a normal person would. So to recall those tears and the circumstances around it, anger was my way of expressing in public, but in private, it was normally through a song or something of that nature. I cried a lot in church because we stayed at church. So if a song came on in the choir, I would cry. Or that would be my purpose behind my tears, would be the song, but it's probably something I was dealing with in my current situation.
Can you, with that, all that being said, from your childhood and the anger, can you recall a time currently that you wanted to cry and felt that same rage or anger that came up and you still did not cry even now?
With the help of a medical therapist, because when you're a counselor, I was told in college, well, get my master's, that you have to get a therapist. So that was one of the reasons that I went and got one. She is teaching me how to lean into my pain because my tears didn't flow when I was a very young child. So when you have pent up emotions and you're not able to express yourself in ways that you feel like you need to, when you become as old as I am, tears don't come unless it's an extreme matter. So death doesn't move me. Somebody else's pain moves me, but not to tears. It moves me to pray. The last time I can recall where I really, really cried from a childhood experience is when I buried my cousin's daughter, Kendria. I cried because she was missing, and I cried at the funeral. I cried twice. And it came from a place where, who came looking for me? Who was looking for me when I was going through my own pain? And that death was 9 years ago. And I think Kiara was in college, her second year in college. However, that's when I can tell you it's been that long since I've went to my childhood to find tears to really expel what it is that I was truly feeling from the inside out.
Interesting. You asked me a question and made a statement at the same time that said mentoring in mourning is missing, and we've become packaged and so artificial when it comes to weeping. Um, my question for you in that statement, if you feel like if you cry before people, or let me ask this question, if you hold back your tears or if you let your tears flow in front of someone, is it a false sense of strength?
It is.
Will it make you too vulnerable?
It will.
Are you afraid of vulnerability?
In front of people.
Because?
That's how I was raised.
Okay. Do you feel like it's okay to debunk some of the things that you were raised in?
It all depends on the space that I'm in. So for Single Moms Inspired for Life Extremes, I hold whole truths, and I hold segments like this. This is why we have a private page, because I found that most African American women, 85% of us, do not like to show our emotions in public. So you get very little activity when a woman has not found who she is or where she's going. You get very little activity in tears. You get very little activity in likes. You get very little activity in communication. So knowing the type of mindset that majority of our African American women hold, we hold the too heavy a yoke. In that arena, those tears are real. To get me to cry on Facebook Live, you probably wouldn't see them from a authentic place because of how I was shaped. I'm 46 years old. Let's not forget that with two mothers and then a spiritual mom grooming you for the face and the platform, and to operate in spaces like this and to have the dialogue that you need, and then getting a mentor who also mentors you from a place of strength, where else would you think that I would be at 46? So to cry with a woman, yes. One-on-one, absolutely. In counseling sessions, that's your space. So I can't give you my expressions in your pain because that's your time. Mentoring, yes, we share. When I mentor women, I am as authentic as you would want me to be. Will my tears fall? Yes, I will cry with you. But from a place in public, um, my aunt died, and I loved her dearly. And in that funeral, I did not cry. My aunt wanted me to stand with her husband, who had a heart attack, in a room. I did not cry. My cousin Kendria was murdered, and I had to give the words of acknowledgement and also pretty much put the funeral and officiate the funeral, bury the child. I did not cry. My cousin was murdered, put in the pulpit again. I did not cry. So do you see where I'm going with this? Tears are not easy to flow from an authentic place unless it's you and I in a room and it's something that you're needing from me. Now, my moms, so I've acquired 3 mothers. I cry. They come for real. Those are probably the only women that will ever see Yvonne exposed and butt naked with the braids out and the hair not washed.
You made a statement that you kind of sort of cried when you had your first child. So how do you help your kids navigate through weeping, or how do you explain to them the importance of their tears?
So hey y'all, me and Dwan went over these questions, and I just gotta keep 100 with you real fast. So I'm gonna answer this question the same way I answered it with her on the porch. I'm not gonna sugarcoat it, and this is an authentic piece right here. I told my kids not to cry because as a Black woman, my perception of strength was not crying. Now today, they pick up the phone and we cry, but they They too have been groomed not to cry in front of people, but you can call your mother and you can cry to me. You can cry as much as you want. If you get hit in the eye, don't show your enemy your weak points. Call me and we'll talk about it.
Whew, that's pretty heavy. That even the way you were raised and groomed, that you would now teach and groom your seeds to do the exact same thing that all three of your moms taught you, to be strong, don't cry, don't show the enemy your weak spots, or don't be too vulnerable in front of people. So me, I'm the opposite of that. I don't mind showing my vulnerability. I don't mind crying or weeping in front of someone, or becoming butt naked in front of someone, whether it be an intimate space that we're in now, or whether it be within a crowd. I've not been afraid. So my reaction to "don't cry, Dwan" is the opposite.
Wow.
Whereas in yours is almost the same with your kids. But it's like, well, for me, I'll cry in a heartbeat. I'm sensitive to certain things, but I won't hide my weep for the sake of saving face.
So I can tell you that for the sake of the question was for me, for the sake of saving face, because you said something, and that saving face is a big word. I can't tell you I know how to practice saving face. I can tell you I've learned how to save face since I was a child. So adverse childhood experiences are, if you are told to do Pavlov's law, there was a dog and he put a collar around his neck and he constantly told him to do one thing over and over and over and over and over and over again. And eventually the dog just automatically did it. Can you imagine for 46 years over and over and over and over and over again?
Absolutely.
With all of that being said, I find it hard not allowing a person lean into who they are and giving them that space to be who they are. So although I may be rigid or a little bit squared off because of how I was raised, if you cry, I won't press upon you because that's who you are.
You are, right.
But when it comes to my children and having them at 18 years old, 21 and 24, 4 children before I even knew 25 existed, and there's a place where I didn't know any better. So for so long, and even now, I have to catch myself because we project who we are on other people, and that's not fair to someone else. In the season that I'm in and the maturity and the experiences that I've dealt with, it develops us to listen well, give people grace, give them great mercy, and allow them to be the human being that God is making them to be. It's absolutely impossible to press a person to change. You have to use patience and wisdom for people to change. So to save face, I don't know what that is. When it was taught to me since I can remember, and I'm still here at 46 years old being told by 3 women the very same thing. And now that we have a professional therapist in the mix, it's teaching me it's okay to cry. Even in your private moment, it's okay to cry.
And with that being said, that's absolutely true. We definitely have to extend grace and, to people, and you cannot, press upon people to feel what you feel, because there's no way I would ever be able to feel what my girlfriend feels, being that we were raised in 2 separate areas of the world, 2 separate backgrounds, maybe some of the same circumstances, but different outcomes, or even the same outcome. We will still never be able to feel what each other feel, or be able to articulate. I can't articulate what that feels like to Yvonne. You can't articulate for me what saving face looks like for me. because of the way we were raised. So with that being said, if we have some sisters or brothers that come to you and say, hey, I got these tears that's been bottled up inside of me for years, how do I release them? What is your voice to them? How would you help them release what they're holding inside that's been there for years and years, and yet still be told at the age of 50, don't cry, don't cry, don't cry? What will you say to them when they want to develop and release all of that they've been holding in? What would you say to them?
What would I say to my 46-year-old self if I was a crybaby? Um, so there's a book called Learning How to Listen. And you either have a round head or you have a block head. So the round head allows the words to penetrate and to marinate and allow you to lean into what a person is saying. The square head normally talks over people. It doesn't listen. It doesn't hear the emotion. It doesn't see the experience, and it doesn't observe the environment. Learning through counseling, because some things are not innately born. And most times everybody's life and upbringing is different. So through training and counseling and doing praxis through those counseling classes, you give that person a floor, no matter how big of a floor it needs to be. It can be a small floor, the space on the floor, or it could be the whole floor. However big a space or small space they need, you give them room to be able to express their emotion. That means you don't interrupt. You let it be about them, and you allow them to lean into what it is that they're dealing with. But how we do it, because me and my house, it's a different circumstance.
Right.
But to come in and to tell me how to run it, and I'm helping you lean into your pain, that's overstepping boundaries. So with those boundaries, you have to know how to help another person lean into their pain. And if I was to meet a stoic me, I'll probably be more understanding because that's who I am. But when I meet a person that cries through learning, reading, and understanding, and with the grace of God, you give them that space to be able to cry. I said cry baby originally because babies cry all the time. At some point in our lives, experiences should strengthen us, not just not to cry or cry about any old thing, but to at least find space, that there's a time and a space for everything. Ecclesiastes says there's a season to mourn. Do we mourn all the time? Should we be mourning now? Yes. Find space in COVID-19, Black Lives Matter, people being murdered. Triggers are coming up. All Black people have dealt with some type of trauma. This here is the season to mourn. That's why you and I have agreed to make this space and create this platform, because we as Black women, some women mourn and don't cry. Some women mourn and cry. Some women cry, mourn, and continue to cry. But this is the space where crying is necessary. So to give an overarching answer and just to make it blunt, I give them an opportunity to just do what it is that they need to do to release their emotions. If it's cussing, if it's hollering, if it's screaming, if it's going to take a jog, if it's looking at a movie. If crying ain't your thing, then we gonna figure out what it is in order to get it out.
That's good. It's making me feel some kind of way. I must say,
yeah, because you are becoming the interrogator, and I'm supposed to just be answering questions. So now I'm in an interview, but it's okay. You're my friend. That's what this is for, is to show women that you can get on here and we can share and give, and what we're saying is going to strengthen somebody else. I promise you it will. If don't but 50 people watch it, if 10 people look at it. I sang this song. If I can help somebody along the way, Yvonne's living is not in vain.
Not in vain. Yeah. And thank you for creating a space for women to come and be able to share their week, to be able to share their experiences of, holding, bottling up their tears, or releasing their tears at some point in time. I wish that there would be more safe places for women of color to come and release the things that they have hold back, or maybe not. Depending on the situation, I should say. But I wish there would be safer places, because sometimes we have had these artificial safe places. Church is one of them. Yeah, I said it. Church is one of them, where you have come in and you think that you can release some of the weep that you've held in for years, some of the secret things that caused you to cry in silence. You've released them in front of a group of people that say they love the Lord and they're there for you, and they turn around and use your very reason for you weeping as a sermon. So sometimes those places that we have created have been a false sense of security, a false sense of being in a safe place, because then you're further wounded in some of these safe places where your cry becomes a mourn, and your mourn becomes anger, and your anger becomes rage, and your rage becomes F church. So we've been there before. You and I have been there before. And I've recently had a conversation with my children's friend that asked, what do you say to us as teenagers? And what do you say to us as those under 30 about crying now, and how to be in a safe place? Because their safe place happens to be social media. They can say what they want. They don't care, because anything goes. So what would you, and this is a question that's off the grid, something we didn't talk about. What would you say to the teenager? Because we both have adult children, but what do you say to the 14-year-old that's crying out for either attention or crying out because they don't understand what's going on in society now? Because this is a hard time. Half of our teenagers have no clue what Juneteenth is, have no idea. They have no idea why we sit and cry, because we remember our forefathers being delivered from slavery and how it looks like we may be transitioning into a strange time. So I have a 14-year-old, and that's a question that's really hard for me to answer. So what do you say, to a teenager that's crying out for the time that we're living in now?
So has the teenager given me permission to overstep my boundaries with them?
They want to answer. They just want answers.
What
Because
would I say to
sometimes overstepping boundaries may be a boundary for you, but not for them. And if you want to be healed, sometimes offense, you may feel like you're being offended through the answer that you're seeking. Offense is walking in offense is a breeding ground for deception. You'd be deceived by thinking that something is not what it really is. So sometimes you have to overstep your boundaries to reach their boundaries.
So the same question, has this 14-year-old allowed me in their space? Because we can't teach boundaries on this platform. So there's levels to, so boundaries come, creating boundaries. So if I have boundaries, it's going to offend the person that doesn't have any. So the question is, has the teenager allowed me? I understand boundaries. So me coming as a skilled counselor, not a therapist, skilled counselor, I'm going to first observe, has the teenager opened up the door for me to step over the boundary? If the door is not open, I wouldn't know how to create a dialogue if they don't give me that space. My kids, the oldest one is 28. The twins are 25 now. And my youngest daughter is 22. Because I have boundaries, I respect their boundaries. Do I invade their space? I pray. And 9 times out of 10, the Holy Spirit reveals it. They'll tell me. I'll just sit and pray. When I know and can feel or sense or kind of discern what's going on, I'll just pray about it. And eventually it's told. It may be a week or 3 weeks later, but it comes out. but
Yeah.
I don't go prying for answers. But with a 14-year-old and where I am now, I first have to have a permission to even have the conversation because teenagers are developing. They are moving and transitioning into who they are about to become. And it's 12 years old where they shaped who they are truly going to be. At 12, I was carrying a baby. Her name is Toya. She was not my child, she was my god sister's child. At 12 years old, I said to myself, I will never raise my kids like what I've seen. Toya wasn't being mistreated, it was the kids that I saw around her. And I can truly tell you that that stuck with me at 12 years old. So I can go back to my 12-year-old self. Dwan, I didn't let people in at 12. I didn't
Mhm.
let people in at 14. I didn't talk to people at 17. I barely cried when I had my first child because I was protecting her. I had to stay strong in my emotions then. So you have to have some sort of boundary, and the door has to open in order to have the conversation. So to shape that answer, I don't know how to give it to you because I've not had to weave my way into somebody's life to talk about those experiences that are going on now or how Juneteenth has taken shape. um I would need to know their culture. How were you raised? What did your mom do? Because everything starts at home. What did she do in front of you? So I'm digging deep into their history, and I'm needing to know, where's your dad? Did you see abuse? Were you molested? Were you raped? And before we can get to the piece that I need to ask, I have to unpack all of that in order to get to what's wrong or how are you relating to our current climate, because it's a lot that goes on with a 14-year-old because it's so many mixed emotions. And if you trigger that emotion too quick, you'll find them
Fine.
running rather than
Mm-hmm.
coming.
It's absolutely correct. That's absolutely true. Thank you for the answer that we didn't discuss. Just wanted to see what your take was on that as a qualified, skillful counselor. Those are all the questions that we had that we talked about asking one another, plus the little bonus question. And so that's all the questions I have for you.
Okay, so ladies, if you have questions, I have not seen anybody chime in because I'm logged in right now. But there have been several viewers. A few people did comment. Micah said, Dwan, she said, help us, sis, round or square head. Which one are we truly? This is good. Micah, if you come back on and listen to this completely, or if you're still on here, I have a book that would come later on in the year because this page is forever. If we get a live platform, what I will do is when I go to the Lifeless Center to create a platform like this, I'll go live in woman to woman because it's so intimate and it's so deep, and we're digging into the core of who we are. There's a book. It's called Learning How to Listen. And what I'll do is I'll post the book out there for you, Minister Micah. She's a great woman of God. She sings so beautifully. But I'll put the book out here when we get done. And it gives about the round and the blockheads. And you will be able to understand how you can even discern when a person isn't listening. The book will
Mm-hmm.
help you see spiritually past if a person is really
Well,
listening
listen.
or if they're really not listening. It'll put you in a different headspace, but it'll help. So I'll put it out there. It's not really a complicated read, but it's something I learned while I was getting my master's in pastoral counseling. So a lot of what you guys hear is what I practice on a daily basis. So practice makes perfect. Doctors are not trained to know how to do it coming out the gate. Preachers are not trained to know how to preach coming out the gate. Pastors, I feel like when you bring on that call, that gate should already be open and you should be prepared to work in it. So with all that being said, I'm gonna give it over to you, Dwan, if you have any comments.
No, just thank you for those who chimed in, those who joined Woman to listen, and just talk about tears telling the truth, tell your truth, and tell the truth. Thank you for, even just creating this space on this good old Friday afternoon. I appreciate it. Thank you for allowing me to tell my truth through my tears, and how to even try to navigate through some of them. With the questions that you asked me now, it makes you reevaluate like, whoa,
It
I
does.
didn't even know I still feel that way. I didn't know that, I can get that emotional off that one little thing, that one little trigger, like you said, even at this age, or something that happened when I was 12-year old, and how to process how to process it. So thank you for that. It's going to definitely cause me to go back and dig a little deeper, to find out why I still have some of those same tears. I can say that, as I've grown up, being able to talk about those tears have become easier. Being able to have a dialogue with my children about my past tears have become a lot easier. And being able to release those tears in safe places have become easier. Um, when you're married into a certain position, you have to, I was taught that I wasn't supposed to cry in front of certain people as well. And that
Can you
angered me.
imagine being told without the platform?
No, I cannot. I can't. And that platform was hell for me. You know. So
No, can
no,
you imagine being told
no, no, no,
before the hats and the glitz and the glamour all your life?
no,
Don't you cry?
I can't.
So people are groomed into certain platforms.
They are. They are.
Me, I was, for myself, I wasn't groomed into not showing emotion. It was a given.
Yeah. Yeah. And no, I can't imagine. No, I can't. I refuse to even try to take my mind there. So, no. So,
They can't
with the,
see my face, but y'all should see how I'm looking at Dwan. Like,
but
you don't want this kind of strength. This thing will
no,
take you
it's not
underwater.
healthy. It's not healthy for me. No, God, I can't do
But I'm
it.
soft as a cotton.
Yeah,
I'm
you
soft
are.
as a cotton. But
Yeah,
boy,
but
I
that
tell
comes
you,
with you allowing people in your space, and you growing past some
absolutely.
things, um, and you opening up to other ideals of life, I should say. But thank you. I'm gonna say this, and this is transparent. Thank you for re-entering my life.
Oh, thank you, Dwan. I appreciate you. This is
Yeah.
good. So we're gonna have two. We're gonna have another one. I gotta get with a couple of more women. I don't know the dates, but I am preaching you guys tomorrow. Single Moms Inspired for Life Extremes is the overarching umbrella, but she has created a platform for women to raise their voice for Juneteenth. And Dominisha Black, she's in our page, she's in this group as well. She's going to facilitate it. So tomorrow at 6 o'clock Central Standard Time, 7 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, come over to Facebook Live, and everybody's going to create a watch party. My page is global, so you can, I don't know if you can comment. Maybe I need to make a, Dwan, you got to help me how to fix it. But tomorrow we're doing a Juneteenth for women. So thank you guys, all 80 women. Whenever you get a chance to just stream down your timeline, listen to this, and go listen to Claudette Copeland too, because all of this was inspired by her. If it was not for her creating a wee in the hours of the night on a Friday, Yvonne was coming up with another book club. And I said, no, we need to touch on who we are and be a little bit more organic and authentic for the women. So, Dwan, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And when I get the next lady, I have two in the making. It'll be next month. It'll be after July the 12th, because I'm doing, oh, ladies, I'm also doing a book club, a book study. It's called Deeper Shades of Purple. That's the name of the book by Stacey Floyd Thomas. Go get the book, Deeper Shades of Purple. So I'm doing a book study, and this book is centered around when the women found that they were really a womanist. And I have given a platform from Latasha Womack, who's in North Carolina, and she's a coordinator for a church, and she's also worked 20 years in public service works. She's been a campaign runner for several presidents that have won. So she's in North Carolina, but she has asked me to be a part of a book study that I'm going to give on July the 12th at 5 o'clock on a Sunday. And it's going to tell what Dwan and I are doing. These women put it in a book. They put their story in the book on how they transitioned to be the voice for other women. And tomorrow you'll hear a little bit about Sojourner Truth and how she became the voice for other women. So long story short, just it's a lot going on social media. I got my friends telling me to sign up for this Zoom and that Zoom. And sometimes you get 5 people in it. Sometimes you get 10. Then you look up, you got 100 views. So I know people going back to look at it. So Dwan, go invite your friends to the page, Dwan. Ladies, invite your friends. Invite your friends. If you have an idea, I'm going to continue to say this because this space it's an organized space because of how life shaped me. So everything is organized. It's cut, it's dry, but it's organized. And it stays within the context of what we're doing it for. Everything is within context with content to go with it. So ladies, if you have an idea and you want a platform, I will get with you. We can talk through it. And this could be how you can launch your brand, your page. However, Single Moms Inspired for Life Extremes has been existing for 7 years. And I can truly tell you, I got here by experts. They've already did it before. So now I have the best expert in the whole wide world under heaven. God is my expert, but I have the best expert in the whole wide world under heaven. And I'm not going to tell you who her name is, but I thank God for dropping her into my life and for edging where I was coloring outside the line. So if you got a platform you want to put here, let me know. To pour out into other women, because all of this is to give. We're not getting anything by being about us. So we're giving you our pains and our truths and our tears. So if you find yourself having problems with having tears, go back and listen to this. And go back and listen to Dr. Claudette Copeland as well, because she was good with it, but she didn't unpack her personal experiences. So just go back and lean into it. And if you want to reach out to me, I have women in my inbox at Reverend Yvonne Johnson. I respond as fast as I can. And I will give you information on how to contact me personally for a counseling setup. I'm open. I'm soft as cotton, but life will make your shoulders hard. And it's okay. But just don't be a mean girl. Be a sweet girl. Don't be mean. Nothing comes from a mean girl. It's okay to be hard, but don't be a mean girl. Sometimes you don't want to smile, but don't be mean on the inside. Just don't smile, you know? But anyway, y'all enjoy y'all evening. And thank you guys for holding on. Dwan, we was on here for 45 minutes. We did good.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's 8:30 her time and it's 7:30 my time. So ladies, y'all have a good night. I'm going to save this video and ask your friends to join. Thank you, Dwan, and I will be calling you here in just a few.
Okay, love you.
Okay, love you too.
Thank you, everyone.
All right.